Hi, how are you today? This is Callan Diggs. Happy to be with you. We have entered the month of March, and I'm curious, are you reaching your finish line? Last month, unfortunately, I lost someone special to me, and his death is a reminder um, to me why it's so important to reach the finish line. And this is why I do this. This is why I wrote the two books about the topic. And this is why I have dedicated many years for this initiative to encourage people like yourself, and other people to reach the finish line. I lost my best friend last month. It was right before Valentine's Day, actually. I didn't know about it until about 2 days, two and a half days later. And yeah, it was, it was so unexpected. It really was. And I the last time I talked to him was shortly before. It was actually several days after the Thanksgiving holiday, and I sent him my Christmas wishes to him, New Year's wishes, and I didn't hear back from him, but that's okay because typically that's kind of how that's kind of how our relationship was. We got each other messages, we got each other voicemails, but we wasn't always able to get back to one another, right away because uh, based on what I do in my professional life and based on what he does or what he did. And yet, I thought everything was okay because, we had such a close relationship that if something was wrong, he would tell me that something was wrong. So, and we kind of had this going on for like a while. Uh, you know, we we've been friends since 2007. So, yeah, he was my friend for nearly 15 years. I always sometimes like the things that he posts on his Facebook profile, and that's one of the places of humor that I typically uh, go to when I want to laugh a little bit because he's always post something sarcastic or funny, and but unfortunately that's when I learned news. They said that he died of what everyone else is dying of nowadays, but somehow that, according to the doctor, uh, it 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 magnified into pneumonia. You know, but that was that was so unexpected, and um, his death is a reminder why it's so important to reach the finish line. Um, it's good to have certain people in your life, and I'm very grateful for his role in my life. Very grateful for that. His value was priceless. Um, he confided in me in a lot of things, and you know, and that will always be between us, even though he's not physically with me. But we really had a very strong relationship. But uh, we had differences of opinions, and sometimes that was an interesting uh, discussion that we had. But he did influence me in many ways to help me become the person that I am today. You know, uh, you know, I was a product of my environment, and I only knew as much as what I experienced. And that was me living in the ghetto, in North Philadelphia. And I knew some things, but I didn't know a whole lot, and there was a huge world out there. And I think due to his age, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things. He had a lot of wisdom, and I was very grateful to benefit from his wisdom. But over time, as he grew older and as I grew older, we took different paths in life. But I did have an influence on him, and he did have an influence on me. I think his influence is more about kind of, I guess, the societal realities, the kind of the false two party, uh, uh, the false two party system, uh, you know, and I think that was very helpful, because again, I didn't have a lot of contrast, when you live in a certain area, you become overwhelmed with certain ideas, and as a result, you do certain actions, like you vote a certain way, or you believe in a certain religion, for example, and there's other things, your lifestyle. There's a lot of other factors as well, but he was very helpful, and bringing that together, and I guess forced me to see it more, to see a broader view, and to help me see things more objectively. And my influence on his life was, I was kind of the health nut. I used to love. Well, I still do. I still do. I enjoyed eating organic, and that was something that I influenced him. Definitely in our first few years in our friendship, and we used to go to Whole Foods Market together and Trader Joe's, and it was great, and obviously it wasn't me just trying to kind of say, hey, you should eat this way because of this. It was actually he saw the benefits of it, and many more benefits that I even was telling him how he would benefit. So I really enjoyed that, and that was a great kind of that was something happy that I was happy to see him do, because he lost weight from that, and his health improved as a result of that, and also helped him to, you know, consider more of a long term, uh, relationship with a significant other. For him, that wasn't something that he was interested in the beginning. But I think as he got older, and I think as you going through that process, he realized that, yeah, having someone who can be dedicated to you and committed to you, that's obviously the more practical choice. And he got married, and he was married up until the day he died. So, so we did have, and there's much more, but that's not the point of the video. But we did have a mutual influence on each other's lives. His motivations were he was very passionate about kind of where the country was going, you know, and where he wanted the country to go, and where the country was actually going. And he was there were some times that he was pessimistic, but it seemed that towards the end, he was more optimistic about that. And For me, I think his influence definitely helped me to consider a lot of things. It started me to travel more, to see more of the world. It started me to, live life as an expat, to live the nomadic lifestyle. And as a result, as living that lifestyle, I also found minimalism to be a sensible way to live like that. And then that just kind of just turned my life into a different direction, a lifestyle that I am very happy with today. So we had some differences of opinions. I was of the idea that, I believe that it's best to get a foreign residency elsewhere, and just have it. If you still, if a person still wants to live in, for example, the U.S., they can, But for example, if you have a permanent residency in another country, well, if something pandemic or whatever happens and you don't want to stay there, you know, and you want to be elsewhere, well, you can because you have a permanent residency, you know. Uh, Steve was more kind of go all out and he kind of fight to the death and that was kind of his approach. He wanted to live in Virginia. He had an idea of a certain area he wanted to live there, and he told me about his plans of how that was kind of be it's going to be his refuge, and it was close to a city, but it was remote, and that was his, as they call, kind of his, I guess, apocalyptic insurance plan. You know, but I I always was supportive of FM, but one thing he told me that is that he wanted to he didn't want to do it yet. He didn't want to execute that plan because of his mother, and he was adopted, and his mother has he told me has been there since he was a very young child, and his mother is a beautiful person, very beautiful person, and and he thought that he would outlive his mother, and unfortunately he didn't. But he thought he would have, and then his plan was, well, once that happened, then he would, make the move. But I think regardless, it's always good to have a plan B. And it doesn't have to be like, for example, I live in Mexico, but you don't have to come to Mexico. You don't have to retire or get permanent it could be anywhere you want to in the world, because we all have different preferences. And, for example, maybe for you it's Brazil, or maybe it's Italy, or maybe it's somewhere in Asia, Mexico just happens to be ideal and convenient for me, but doesn't mean it's going to be a good option for you. I recommend that you check out my playlist. I have a playlist of the 5 W's of reaching the finish line. So go in more detail. Uh, be sure to check that out. I'm going to add a link. You can find that either in one of these cards on the screen or in the description. I will not underestimate his role in my life. Thanks to him, I have became a better person, and I think as a result, uh, I have I have continued uh, in developing myself and being better and better and better. Because that's the whole reaching the finish line message that I talk about all the time. I've written 2 books about it, um, and I've a lot of these videos that you're watching, it's what it's all about, maybe in different forms, but it's essentially what it is. It was a beautiful friendship. It really was. Um, you know, it gets it's easier to talk about it now, obviously, than it was last month, but sometimes it's still a little hard. Um, but one thing that the purpose of this video is about how it's so important to start where you are now to reach the finish line. You know, it doesn't matter how old you are, you know. Um, you know, uh, unfortunately, my best friend, he died too early, you know. He had a lot of life left, and I just wanted, as any great friend, I just wanted the best for him, and I encouraged him to, you know, maybe, plant some roots abroad, minimal, like a foreign residency, like a permanent residency. If he can still continue to live in the U.S. if he wants to, but at least if he didn't any longer, he could have a base abroad to relocate to for whatever length of time that he desired. And that's what I suggest for you and anyone else watching this video. It's a great plan B. And some countries have more lenient or easier paths to permanent residency. In other countries, it's more difficult. Like other countries require that you actually have to live there. You have to live there the whole time, or if you do leave, you can only be out of the country for maybe a few days or maybe 2 to 4 weeks, and then that's it. If you're out longer, they cancel it, and then you have to start from the beginning again. So, but there are countries, for example, Mexico. There's other Latin American countries, Paraguay. There's other Latin American countries and I'm sure European countries and others around the world where you can um, spend a minimal amount of time in the new country, and eventually you can have your permanent residency. And then, if you want to go back to the U.S., if you want to live there for the majority of your life, you can. But if something happens, you will at least have a plan B option. Some countries they have this uh, kind of conditional permanent residency, in a sense, and actually the U.S. is one of the countries that has that, and I'm sure other countries has it too. Um, but sometimes, like for example, I know Panama has like that. Panama is like you have to be there like 3 to 4 days a year, or something like that. And if you don't, they will cancel your permanent residency. So weird rules, because permanent residency is supposed to be permanent, right? But this is why it's good to do your due diligence and to know ahead before you go through the entire application process. But for example, in Mexico, it's once you get it, it's permanent. For example, if I went back to the U.S. for 6, 7 years and I came back to Mexico with my permanent resident card, they will let me in. It will be no issue. So this is why, again, you have to do your due diligence. I don't claim to be an expert about this specific topic, but I've did a lot of research to at least have an above average understanding about which kind of residency processes and what countries would be worth my time. And Mexico, I felt that was probably the most practical one. That was something that I really wanted for my friend, because it was difficult. It was difficult for a while. Trying to get in and out of the U.S. and all of those mandates, and it was difficult. And and I was trying to not only my friend, but I was trying to tell people like in advance, like, hey, like just start the process, and in many cases, specifically with Mexico, but with other countries too, you can do it at the consulate within your country. And some countries, like Mexico, will give you permanent residency while you're in the US. Now, you still have to go to Mexico to finish the other half of the process, but you're half the way, you're 50% of the way there. And other countries have similar rules too. But yeah, it was very difficult during that time to travel. And I know some people, they came to Mexico and they got stuck. They couldn't go back to the US. And they were actually US citizens, So yeah, it's just like, you know, who knows what's going to happen now? You got all these different variants and, who knows what's going to happen. Preparation is the best form of, you know, overcoming any type of adversity, is being prepared for it. And and the question is, are you prepared? You know, maybe you have kids, or maybe you have a elderly parent. It's for some people it's easier than other people, but there's always step one, step two, step three. Okay, are you taking some steps into the right direction to reach the finish line? You know, maybe you're happy with where you are. Maybe you want to stay in the US, or maybe you want to relocate to a different part of the US, like my friend did. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is your plan, for example, to protect yourself from inflation? Okay, what's your plan for that? Because fortunately, the government tends to underreport the reality of the statistics. And they say, oh, it's only 4%, it's only 5%. Oh well, yeah, it's 7% in Atlanta, but that's an exception. That's not the norm. The norm is 5%. Well, the reality is, you look at you look at alternative media sources done by organizations who are not affiliated with the government, economists, these types of people, and they have said that it's 10%. It's 10%. Average is 10%. Some sectors is even higher. If you're talking about gas or some other sectors, it could be higher. On average, it's about 10%. Now just think, okay? You are working whatever job that you have. Maybe you like your job, or maybe it pays you enough to keep the job. But you're working your job, right? And I'm sure a lot of people get paid direct deposit, okay? And you have your money in your bank account, okay? And you have a savings account or a certificate of deposit, and they tell you they need 3%, 3% interest, okay? Yeah, typically it's 1 to 3%. I haven't seen any other U.S. account offers a higher interest rate than that. It's typically 1 to 3, okay? Now, 1 to 3% interest rate, and then you have to live with your current cost of living that's been affected by inflation. So let's say you get 3%. Okay, take your 3% minus 10% inflation. That's -7. That's -7%. So now you're getting negative interest. Now you're losing 7% of the purchasing power of your money. So what is your plan to combat that? Some people invest in the stock market, or some people invest in cryptocurrencies or real estate. There are some options, but I hope that you have at least a reliable option because, you know, unless you are making like so much money that uh, that 7% or 10% is not going to hurt you, well, then you are an exception. But many people are not. Many people are making, who knows? They're making $10 an hour, $12 an hour, $15 an hour, you know, $17 an hour. Even with that, if you live in a big city, like New York City or LA or Chicago, most cases, you know, that might not be enough to have a comfortable lifestyle. So that's something that I want you to consider specifically for the people who are who are destined to say, you know what, no, I like where I am. I think, I like where I am, but there are some good ideas here, but I'm going to stay in the US. That's fine. You can live elsewhere, maybe in a state or city where it's cheaper. But again, that inflation is going to be there. Now, there is inflation all around the world. Okay, there's inflation here in Mexico. I recognize that. However, one thing that gives people like me an advantage is the currency exchange rate. Okay. And especially when you buy from the open markets and you're paying cash, and for example, you can get 20 pesos to $1. Well, that buys you significantly more, you know. Like for example, like there's places here where you can get 4 kilos. 4 kilos. Now a kilo is 2 pounds. Okay. Kilo is yeah, kilo is 2 pounds. Okay. So you can get 4 kilos of oranges for 30 pesos. Okay, so that's 8 pounds for a dollar 50, $1.50. So uh, while there is inflation in Latin America and other countries, the effect here is minimal compared to the effect in a Canada or a USA or England. So this is the reason why that I am a big believer of this type of lifestyle. But if you're able to work online and take your job with you, and that salary, like you could save and invest significantly more living in a country with a lower cost of living, even if it wasn't as maybe as much as so low as Mexico, even if it was Spain or Italy, or even a country where you're saving 20%, still, that's 20% more money that you can save and that you can invest for the long term. For me, I'm here in Mexico because my goal is lean fire. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that, but the whole fire thing is uh, financially independent, retired early. Okay, and there's different forms of it. Uh, th- I will save that for maybe another video. But the lean fire is where you don't have to save a whole lot of money to retire. Lean fire is you can save the bare minimum of amount of money to retire, and obviously factor in inflation, and you don't have to worry about uh, trying to save millions and millions of dollars, because in situations like in some countries like Mexico or other Latin countries, uh, you don't need millions of dollars to retire for the rest of your life. You know, in Latin America, you can do that easily for maybe a half a million or even a quarter of a million. depending on where you live. I'm sure that applies to some countries in Africa, some countries in Southeast Asia. So those are the things that are possible. I think it's important now than ever due to the uncertain times that we live in to 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 start making progress towards your finish line. What do you want your life to look like in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, or 10 years? You know, what do you want it to look like? Okay, now ask yourself, what are you doing to ensure your life can look that way in that near future? What are you, I know it's difficult, in this time. I know. You know, things are just starting to go back to normal now. In some countries, it hasn't. I have friends in Australia and where it's everything's pretty much still on lockdown. And then now with this war going on, and it's yeah, it could be unsettling. But that is this is just another example of adversity, right? We all have different types of adversity, and this is kind of like a almost a worldwide adversity that we all are facing, some to a larger extent than others. How prepared are you for the future? Part of reaching the finish line is going through adversity. Okay, well, this past 2 years has been a big test of adversity for many of us. So, uh, you know, I think the question is, you know, how are you adjusting, and what is your plan? Because I'm 35 years old. As you get older, it's hard to rebound from, like big mistakes. When you're younger, it's much easier to do. But when you start getting my age and 40 and 45, you could still make calculated risks, but you have to just be a bit more uh, uh, diligent about it. So, well, I'm going to leave it there. It's been over half an hour now, but I hope this was helpful. I really do. And it's my intention for you to reach the finish line. I will always miss my friend. His death is a reminder why it's so important to reach the finish line. And it starts with you. It starts with you. Some people may not be supportive. Some you might have toxic relationships in your life. Uh, I'm not saying it's easy, but what I am saying is it can be done, and it starts with you. Look at the value of what your finish line is, and look at the value of other people in your life, and decide which is the better value. You know, um, After all, that's what I did. That's what I did, and happy here in Mexico. Well, uh, until next time, it's my intention for you to reach the finish line. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like. By you giving a like, it allows more people to also see this video. If you're on YouTube or DTube or whatever platform you're watching this video, yeah, if you like it, give me a like. No? Yeah, go ahead, give me a like. And also, um, post a comment. I'd be interested to hear about what you are going through, and be happy to talk to you and connect with you in the comment section. So if you have time, be sure to do that. And if you're not already subscribed, well, you know what to do. Subscribe. And by subscribing, you will get every video that I publish in the future. I publish a video like every 3 days. So be sure to do that, and you have to hit that little bell, that notification bell, uh, and I'll always, when I publish a video, I'll always show up in your feed. So till next time, I hope you're reaching the finish line.